it was a big year. About 18,000 people participated that year in the march, including 4 buses from Miami. We participated in an adult march, and when we came back from the march, Marty and I would meet for coffee and lunches, and he would continue to tell me his story. And I would ask him to, when he would come back from Canada to Miami as a snowbird, if he would bring pictures. And so little by little, we started talking about his whole life story. And he said, you know, Marty, have you ever considered writing down your story? And so, Marty said,
can everyone please mute themselves? We'll ask everyone please mute themselves. Go ahead, Lisa.
So, you know, Marty gave me a lot of excuses about why he couldn't write down his story, not the least of which is that he can only type with 2 fingers. So that was gonna hold him back. So I said, well, look, I know how to type and English is my first language, so I think I can help you out. And we started meeting and I started documenting the story. And then in 2011, he said, you know, I'm going back to Poland like I do every year on the march, and you've got to come because now we're going to go back to my hometown of Wierzbnik. So I went in 2011, and Stephanie Rosen, who's a member of Temple Beth Shalom, who many of you know, was my roommate on that trip. And it was a very meaningful trip for her as well, as she is a child of survivor, child and grandchild of survivors. And then in 2013, Marty said, you got to come back again because now we're going to Austria and we're going to go to Mauthausen, where I was liberated, and from Mauthausen and also from Gunskirchen, which is actually the sub-camp that he was liberated from in May 4th of 1945. So at that point, I had to go back again and complete the entire journey and the story. And so we wrote this book, and it was published in May of 2018. And since then, we've been speaking at a lot of different places. We've spoken at bookstores and schools and museums and synagogues. And as you heard last year, the National World War II Museum in New Orleans, and 2019, and the book was selected as mandatory reading for all incoming freshmen for FIU. So we spoke at both campuses at FIU. And later this spring, the book is being turned into an audiobook. So it's been really important to document this story. If any of you are going to watch the film that's going to be discussed on Wednesday as part of the Federation, it's called Who Will Write Our History, you see the importance for victims of the Holocaust and survivors alike of how important it is to have their stories told and remembered. So that's really that's how the book came about.
Wonderful. Lisa, so my dad is here. Dad, I know you, Dad, you can hear. So Dad, this is our group from Temple Beth Shalom. And Lisa's going to maybe ask you a question or two about the book and some others, and I will ask something as well. Lisa?
Marty, can you see me? Can you see me? Where are you?
Can I what?
Can you see what this picture behind me?
Yes.
This picture behind me. Can you tell us about that picture, when it was taken, where it was taken? How
Which
old?
one?
This picture on the cover of the book.
Oh, this was in just before the before the Second World War started. It was about June 45.
No, 39 at the beginning.
That was done in a place in Poland called Zakopane. That's a beautiful place. It was also done for people that could afford it, and mostly Jews would come down there during the summer vacations.
So that was the summer of 39, and then Poland was invaded September 1st.
Yes,
So
we came back about the end of August, and our father was waiting for us in another town to make sure to tell us the story that the war is going to be starting in about a week or so, and that's what happened. That's why we came back to Poland.
So on September 1st, when Germany invaded Poland, where did you go immediately? You went
September 1st.
Yes, you went out.
We're going outside, and Jewish kids were not allowed to go to school anymore. And we knew it's not going to be a good ride. Germany started taking over every part of Poland. And as usual, Jews were not allowed or elected or invited to come to all those fairs. And now it's our part that we must keep the Jewish world to know and remember what happened to us. If not, I don't like to be pessimistic, but don't forget that after so many years, so many people were killed, and very few are, excuse me, coming to all those tragedy remembrances. Very few Jews are coming. And I'm very scared of it, that another few years and nobody will be around to hand over to the next generation what happened to us in 1930.
Yeah, so there are a lot of efforts. I know that for many years you didn't speak about your experience during the war. And then after you started telling your story, you went on the March of the Living over 20 times. You went back to Poland and Israel and went with groups of students and adults. And there are efforts through the March organization and also through other organizations, like Stephanie's been working on a third generation group to learn their family histories, to be able to tell the stories, to be able to document the story. One of the things that has made it easier now is that a lot of the archives are now open, so it's easier to access records. But right now, worldwide, there are less than 2,000 living survivors worldwide who were in Auschwitz, which is, which does make for some urgency to get these stories told and on paper. So even though tonight, or I'm sorry, Wednesday is International Holocaust Remembrance Day, liberation didn't come for you till May. So I know you have told me that if you could have hidden in Auschwitz, you would have, if you had known that the Red Army was going to be liberating on January 27th, because when you started out leaving Auschwitz to go on the death march was really the beginning of the worst part of the war for you. Do you want to talk about the actual day of liberation for you, May 4th?
Well, you come and we're jumping too fast from
Well,
one
tell her what
time.
Start
to
wherever you
another.
start.
Because from the time you're telling us what's happening in the barracks of Auschwitz and other places
Okay.
until the liberation was a long, long time. Every day was a long day for waiting for liberation. To start going in to what happened in the 40s, for a guy like me, I was 12 years old when I got away from a group of Jews that were going to be sent away. I was very young. I was 13 or 14 years old, but we knew what's going to happen to us if we don't run. And we were sent into Birkenau, which was Auschwitz. And there were only two ways. Either you go to the gas chambers or out. So happened that a guy like me had a lot of years of knowing how to get away from it, because we were occupied by the Germans in 1939, just about 2 weeks since the liberation, since the knowing what's happening. So we slowly got used to the life of being occupied by the Germans, because the Germans in the beginning sent in just ordinary soldiers, and there were no harm. But as it got along, it was all run by SS and SD, and they were both very, very bad. And the lifetime, they start occupying the city completely and send the young ones, the ones that was capable of working in factories and so on, they were taken away in 1947, 46, 47. And eventually they were just, in our town, there was an ammunition factory that was taken over by the Germans, and they were holding a lot of keys. There were more Jews in our town because of that. And all the kids and so on, and all the people were shipped out from there, never to be seen again. How I made it is a long, long story, but I'm here to tell about it, that at the age of 13 or 14, I told them my age was much higher than that, and I got a job in a factory. It was run by the Germans, but one guy was a very nice German person. He knew I wasn't that old that I told him. He knew that I am not half of what I had to tell him. And we were there for about a year and a half until we were sent to Auschwitz. The first time we heard of Auschwitz, but not in personal attachment to feel what it is like to be in Auschwitz. When they sent us into Auschwitz, we were in cattle cars, but there were no kids like me, because all they had there was labor power. There were only 2 or 3 kids at our age. The other guy was name is Kiva. We both ran away from getting up on the train for the ones to be shipped away. Kiva and I both ran away from the town, and then we survived for another year and a half before being scared. Mind you, you never forgot to get scared and to see who is coming for a report. We made it till 1944, until we were shipped to Auschwitz.
Yeah.
And being in Auschwitz, you have to learn fast. You learn fast or you're gone. I was in Auschwitz until until they start picking people in to go to the gas oven, to the gas ovens. And I was too small to tell them that I was 16. It didn't work. So eventually I had to run away, not out of camp, in the camp, hiding in the camp until the thing would be shipped out to Germany. And from there on, we held on until we were liberated on May the 14th, 15th in Germany and in Austria. And from there is another long story after the Second World War, what to do with itself. I was 14 years old. I was born in 1930. I was 14 years old. And I was not, they would ask me how old I am. I would tell them born in 1916, which would make me 16 years old. It couldn't always get away with it, but it gave enough chance to stealing enough for bread. We were fast, we could do think faster than the older people. And we had to think fast what's gonna happen. I survived Auschwitz by sheer luck. To be in Birkenau. Birkenau was the place for the guest chambers. I think for 4 guest chambers in Birkenau, and I got away from all 4. I'm here to tell about it. And from Birkenau, once they start running away from Poland, we went with them, and we eventually ended in Auschwitz. I mean, in Auschwitz, yes. We were in Auschwitz until 40 and 45, when the Russians start coming closer. I was 14 years old at the time, 14 and a half, something like that, and it was swim or run away. Things were very, very rough. Hunger-wise was bad. There was nothing to eat. There was, we went on dead marches. We got water, because it was raining at the time. And we went from camp to camp until we wound up in Germany, close to Germany. And eventually we were liberated in Austria.
Yeah. Dad, I just want to ask you, I just want to comment for a second. You know, there's a unit in the American Army called the 71st Infantry Division. And they were the ones that liberated my dad's camp in May of 1945. And if you Google and just put in the words 71st Infantry Division, the second or third or fourth thing will be this little booklet called Gunskirchen, which is the name of the sub camp where my dad was liberated from. And there, some of the soldiers drew maps and they shared their feelings of what they saw. Well, in 2005, 60 years after the liberation, my dad was invited with a group of 6 other survivors of Gunskirchen to go to Washington, D.C. And that night, he and those other survivors had dinner with soldiers who liberated him and their children. So the liberators got up and said, "I'll never forget what I saw." And then the survivors got up and said, "Without you, I would never be alive today." It was this incredible, emotional night. And the next morning, we were invited to the Holocaust Museum in DC, where the general of the standing 71st Infantry Division was being presented with a booklet. That morning when we got there to the Holocaust Museum, those of you that have been to DC know that if you don't have a reservation in advance, you stand in this big line. And I'll never forget, we got there, my kid brother, myself, my mom, and my dad. And we got there, and there was this huge line, and the program was about to start. And my dad goes up to the security guard and says, "We're here for a program, and I'm a survivor." And the security guard said, "You don't have to wait. You come right in. You've done enough." And it's so many years ago. It's 16 years ago now, and I remember it like yesterday. And and today, my dad is 90 years old. This past summer, on August 15th, my dad turned 90. And because of the pandemic, we couldn't have a big party. And my dad was asking why his friends can't be there. My dad, thank God, my dad and my mom, who just celebrated their 67th wedding anniversary, asked.
I thought it was 56.
No, Dad, it's 67. I know. I got the number down, Pat. And they couldn't understand really why we couldn't invite all their friends. And thank God they have friends in Miami and friends in Toronto. And so, Dad, you're 90 years old now. You're 90, Kanena Hora. You got a long way to go, like you told me last night.
I'm not going anywhere. I like it here.
Good.
What's wrong?
Dad, what's the lesson? What's the lesson you have for all the people that are watching, the 55 people that are watching, including some of Rabbi Davis's ninth grade students who are 14 and 15 years old? What's the lesson? Why should they be listening to you? And what should you tell them about your experience that they should remember for the future?
First, you got to be lucky. When you're lucky, it plays for you. I have spent in the camps over 3 years, and to go through in Auschwitz, to get away and not to be shipped to the gas chambers was a very, very big thing. I don't know whether I was luck, whether it was luck with me, or I outsmarted them, or whatever it is. I made them through, and I was told by a German. He was a politician man in jail, and he always took care of me. When we went working, and I was the smallest, the youngest, he always looked after me to make sure that they don't see me. So all in all, it comes to luck. You have to be lucky. I went through so many things, and always thought another day, and that's the way we live this by the day. And I made it.
Thank God. Dad, and there's
And
a
I
number.
hope to God that it never, ever happens to any of you children or to yourself,
Mark.
because it's something that if you got to talk about it, it's not easy. I've been doing this with Lisa for a long, long time. And I said, Lisa, nothing has changed. Let me out. And she wouldn't. She says, no, there's more people have to know about it. And I listened to her because she is not anyway a survivor or any relative being a Holocaust survivor. She's an American, rich American person, looked after everything and had enough time. I believe that I was the one to talk her in to come on the March of the Living in the first place. Am I right, Lisa?
Whatever you say, Marty. Okay, but I do want to say, getting back to the importance of why it's important to remember the Holocaust. The Claims Conference, which is responsible for giving reparations to Holocaust survivors, came out with a survey, and the survey showed just terrible statistics about how little Americans know about the Holocaust. It was just appalling. Adults and millennials, how little they know. And it's important because we saw at the at the storming of the Capitol recently, people wearing shirts that said Auschwitz camp like it's a joke. They were wearing shirts that said 6MWE, which means 6 million wasn't enough. So we need to keep it in the forefront of our minds and our hearts, and really how we conduct our lives, because it's important to remember and to counteract Holocaust deniers. A survivor friend of mine once told me that when somebody tells you that their intent is to wipe out the Jews, you better believe them. So during the pandemic, one of the good things that came out was this Never Again Education Act, which was passed by Congress, which gives some funding to the Holocaust Museum and Memorial in Washington, because right before that federal law was passed, only 12 states required mandatory Holocaust education in the school systems, which is appalling. And this is part of the reason why people don't know about the truth about what happened in the Holocaust. Schools would teach, they could teach World War II education in their history classes, but not teach the Holocaust at all, which is pretty shocking. So
I want to just say, and then we're going to open it up in the chat box for any questions, and please feel free to put your questions down. My dad had a cousin in Israel, and I we actually, Sandy called me, Sandy Cohen, who runs our amazing coffee shop and gift shop. It's now virtual because we can't go in. Today we got a bunch of books of my dad's books that are there. One of the stories that he shares is about a cousin that he had in Israel, and this cousin whose name was Aryeh Kopf. When my dad got to Palestine, he was put in a camp called Atlit, ATLIT. Dad, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure I have this right. And when my dad was in that camp, his cousin Aryeh would come on Saturdays, on Shabbatot, and throw sandwiches over the fence to him. Dad, is that right? I see you're nodding your head, so that's right.
Very correct.
My dad never, ever, ever forgot that. And my dad was so good to that man for the rest of his life and his whole family. In fact,
brought him to Canada about a half a dozen times, sent him to Israel a couple of times, all expenses paid. And they deserved it.
And today, just to make it, today was his daughter's 70th birthday. I mean, the years have flown by. Today was his daughter's Pesia's birthday, and we sent flowers from our whole family to Pesia, because even though she's a second cousin or third cousin or whatever she is, they've treated us and we've always treated them. Family's family. It doesn't matter how you call it. And especially when it's the subject of the Shoah, the subject of the Holocaust, family's family. And so we never forgot that.
Well, Mark, they also had an incredible survival story, those kids, how they survived, which,
right.
We can't go into every story in the that's in the book, but basically the father was a master carpenter and crafted which was like the equivalent of like a coffin, and hid those two children throughout the duration of being in the labor camp in your dad's town, before they were able to escape to make their way to Palestine. So, I mean, there are incredible miracles, stories throughout the book, especially right. Your father. And
right, Lisa, Gail Harris, who has traveled with my dad a number of times.
Yes.
I just asked. She asked a special request, and she's going to get it because it's Gail Harris. But I will tell you this: my dad's friends that moved to Israel, who were from Poland after the war, and he stayed in touch with them. Many of them have passed away since. Their kids and me have become the closest of friends. So it's like one generation later, but it's my dad's friends' kids who I'm now friends with. Dad, Gail Harris asked for you if you could
Who?
share. Gail Harris,
Yes,
Gail asked if you would share.
he was with me on the trip a couple of times.
Yes, yes. If you would share a story about what happened to you while you were in Italy.
Yes. Look, she took it up very serious, and it did something to her. And she went out to make sure that the new generations should know what happened two generations before her. And it does good, because otherwise we don't know if there's still a few survivors that survived up until now, but we don't know how long we will still stick around. I was the youngest. I never told them my right age, but I was young. And it came the time to change my real age. People think, and you made it? I say, here I am.
Was Gail wanting you to talk about when you went after liberation and you were smuggled into Italy and you were recuperating in Italy before taking an illegal ship to Palestine? Is that the part of Italy that she wants you to talk about?
Yes.
Of course, I'll tell you about it. It's a very interesting story
Yes.
and very important to us all. You didn't have to be a survivor to be interested in how the Italians were nice and good to us. I learned a little bit of Italian while we were in Italy. We wanted to go back to Palestine to become Palestinians, or whatever you call them, but to Poland, I did not. I was 14, 15 at the time. I knew I'm not going to Poland. And I never went back to Poland till a couple of years ago for other reasons, not monetary reasons. For Jews to go back to Poland was a very, very big job. And we tried to teach the Poles out that they didn't come out all so clean, that they weren't kosher, that they cooperated with the Germans right after, that they operated with the Germans. And it went on. Today, Poland is one of the biggest Israeli cooperators. And so that's how things change around.
But what, Marty?
Sorry,
So when you went to Italy, you were in Santa Maria Bani.
Santa Maria de Bani, yeah.
So what was that all about?
Well, we wanted to go to Israel, and the British that controlled Palestine wouldn't let us into Palestine. So we hanged around for a while until there was some boats, so-called ships, that myself and some of my friends went on one of those ships, and we wanted to go to Palestine. Palestine was run by the British, and we went as far as Cyprus when our ship broke down, and we couldn't go anywhere, so we had to call for SOS for the British to come and take us, and they sent us at that time to what do you call it? Cyprus. And we were the second ship to Cyprus at the time, and we were the first ones to be left back, that we came back to Palestine at the time. But I went back to school at the time in Palestine. I picked up the language, the Hebrew language, very well. I still speak it quite well up until today. to tell you whether normal people could go through it, very hard. So we went through, whether it was hunger, whether it was stealing food, whether Italians going to cooperate with you. You know, there were so many things, so many things. Nobody went to Poland, but the Italian people were extremely nice to us. And when the British started to send us back, the Italians sent us south in Italy, so the British couldn't get a hold on us. And I lived in Italy about a year and a half, 2 or something like that, in Italy, and until the British started losing up and letting Jews into Palestine.
Good. Dad, so listen, you know what? Sometimes when my dad speaks, you know, there's so much that he wants to share. You know, it's a little condescending, but I would suggest that you read the book. If you haven't read the book, or even better, you go on a trip with my dad to Poland.
That was a few years ago.
Yeah, I know, Dad. You still got one trip left in you. You told me.
Oh, I got more. I'm not going anywhere. I got lots of time to go.
And I have to tell you, my dad's wearing a shirt on his chest that says March of the Living. Dad, show everyone your shirt. There you go. There it is. Dad, you're awesome today. You're perfect the way you're sitting. Nice. Anyways, my dad started going in 1996 on the March of the Living, this 2-week trip. It's a week in Poland and a week in Israel. And we're in Poland for Yom HaShoah with thousands of other kids and adults that all wear these blue jackets, and they march from Auschwitz to Birkenau and to see thousands of people. Well, I can tell you personally, because I've been with my dad many times, I see the impact that he's had on so many people. I've been with him in a barrack, sitting in a barrack with 50 people, and where my dad says, this is the exact type of barrack that I was in 65 years ago, 67 years ago, 68 years ago, 70 years ago. And it's history. It's history right there in front of you. And so, Dad, I got to tell you, listen, I'm going to tell everyone on this chat group. I'm in Miami, my dad and mom. Where's Mom, Dad? Is Mom right next to you, Dad? Mom, say hi to everyone. Mom, come a little closer.
Oh, there she is.
I'm sitting here all the time.
That's my mom, Betty. Mom, say hi.
Betty.
Hello.
A lot of people know, and there's some very close friends of ours, Joanne and Danny, and I have to tell you, Joanne and Danny Aronson, who are very dear friends of our family. I just want to say that Danny's got a dad who tomorrow is turning 90 years old. And one of the beauties of David turning 90 years old is that he shares his birthday with his son, Danny. So Danny and his dad both share January 26th, and tomorrow's a very special day. And I know we have a special party for Dave on Zoom tomorrow. So Danny, we look forward to it. And Danny is one of my dad's favorite friends, and they love to have a scotch together when they get together. So we hope to do that in the very near future. So, yes, Lisa.
First of all, and I forgot to mention that the Aronsons were also with us in New Orleans and have been on the march many times with Marty as well. But Marty, Gail wanted you to tell the story about. No?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Gail wanted you to tell the story about when you were in the Vatican after you were in Italy, and how you
what do you want to notice? Oh, not that, Lisa. Sorry.
Right. Gail wants to know about when you went to the Vatican to get money from the Vatican after.
Oh, that's, I was a young boy of 14 by the time I came to Italy afterwards. When I was 13, I was liberated and I didn't have where to go. So we decided to go to Rome. A few boys, I was the youngest at the time. We went to Rome, and Rome, they said that the Pope is giving out the food to Jewish kids. They gave up this and this. So I went to the Pope, to the Vatican, and they gave us so much money to become a what do you call it?
Convert to Catholic, to become Catholic.
So I went to the Vatican and to convert. They were paying money to become a convert. I said, sure, what have I got to lose? Until I went second time because it was a good income. Second time they recognized me, they started chasing me. I never went back to the Vatican again.
There you go. It's a great story, and it's in much more detail in the book. Well, just to wrap it up, you know, my dad, once he was liberated, you heard that he went to Italy, then he went on an illegal ship and was in Cyprus, got to Palestine, was in Atlit in a prisoner camp, later went to a kibbutz. He fought in the 1948 War of Independence. And then miraculously, he found out that his mother was alive in Canada. His mother thought that my father was dead, and my father thought that his mother was dead for 4 years. And they found each other through these Red Cross lists. And my dad came to Canada in 1949, early 1949. And a few years later, he met this lovely young lady named my mother, and they got married in 1953. They had 53. I know, Dad. You just celebrated 67. Take it easy. They had four kids, 9 grandchildren, and now 1 great grandchild with another on the way. And again, you ever told my dad when he was 13 in Auschwitz that he would live to at least 90 with plenty more to go? With all that, he would never believe that one either. So
when I came back, I didn't have 2 cents.
That's right.
After the war, when the war ended, I didn't have anything. And thanks God, we did good. Canada was good to me, to us. We did good, made a damn good living. Our kids all highly educated. And one is a doctor, one is a doctors.
A lawyer, one's a lawyer, one's a doctor.
Educators.
Yeah, whatever. One works in a synagogue. Well, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's all good.
That's very nice for a guy that didn't know more than signing their name. That's quite an achievement as far as I'm concerned. That when I came back to Italy, I didn't know anything, not a word of Italian either, but I learned Italian. And I did good. Thanks God.
Thanks God.
My kids not come complain.
That's true. And as a matter of fact, yes, I'm hoping to see my parents in the very near future and spend some quality time with them. I look very forward to that. So I'm going to, it's 8:05. Kim, I want to say thank you to you and to Phyllis and to Josh Lawrence, our Brotherhood chair, and you guys as Sisterhood co-chairs, my colleague who's the staff, Cantor Siegel, and to all of you and my buddy, Craig Burko, who is the staff person with me tonight. It's really special to have you all here. I'm really lucky that I have my mom and dad. I got to tell you, I'm really, really, really lucky. And I don't go a day without acknowledging that I have my mom and dad, and that my dad can share his story, and my mother's sitting right there next to him. And they even gave up tonight. They gave up Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy, which they watch every single night. Dad, thank you for giving that up tonight. I appreciate it.
Okay, it's your mother. I should live without it.
And by the way, we've been focusing tonight on Marty, but Betty also has a very interesting story, which is completely different. She is also a survivor, but she survived in Siberia and then was in a DP camp. So, there are a lot of different survival stories, and each one is unique and special and important and different. The thing that I found so compelling about Marty's story, though, is that he encompasses every part of the war. He was in a ghetto, he was in a labor camp, he was in Auschwitz-Birkenau, on a death march in Mauthausen, in a sub camp. He was liberated, and then, as Mark mentioned, later made his way to Palestine, fought in Israel's War of Independence. So it's really, you know, sometimes you hear a survivor story and they talk about being in a work camp or they talk about being in a ghetto, but Marty's story is just all encompassing. And the fact that he was so young is just a very, very compelling story.
Great.
You love-
So on that note, good night, everyone. Thank you for being with us. We look forward to more. And again, thank you to all of you for joining us.
Thank you, Mark, Lisa, and Marty. We love you.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Very much.
Thank you, Mark.
Got
Thank you, Mark.
Terrific.
Marty. It was wonderful. Where's Betty, Martin?
Yes, thank you so much. It was
Yeah,
fascinating.
where's Betty?
Hi, Betty.
There she is.
You want to say hi to you, Betty?
Yeah, thank you, Betty.
Everybody, hi.
Hi, Betty.
Good night, everybody.
Betty, thank you so
Good
much
night.
for
Thank
putting
you.
up with
Are you coming to Florida this year?
We hope.
Are you
Right
coming
now,
to
we're not
Florida?
allowed. We're not allowed. We hope. we
Can't get
come.
out of Canada.
Yeah, we'd love to.
Oh,
We'd love to see you all, and thank you very, very much for a lovely evening. Thank you.
thank you, and thank
for
Marty.
sharing-
Thank
All
you.
right, all
for
right.
sharing your son with us.
Look at that beautiful face.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks,
Did
Lisa.
a
Thank you,
great
Mark.
job on the book. It was
And
wonderful.
Nava was somewhere in the.
It was a
Wonderful.
wonderful
That was-
program. And Martin.
Hi.
Thank you very much. I want you all to see Nava.
Hi,
Bye,
Nava.
Nava.
Nava is, I understand Nava is #1 with Martin and Betty.
Yes,
Oh,
she,
yeah.
well, no,
Lucky us to have
one of
Martin
three,
here.
can I know her?
Yes, but my father loved Nava. My father.
Hi, Rob.
His father loves Nava. True.
You love Nava?
Very,
I love
very-
you, Martin.
I'm signing off. Good night. Love you. Mwah.
Night. Good night.
Lisa.
Bye, good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Doctor?
Doctor.
I hope you guys get successful and start taking a couple of trips every year to Israel from people that have never been to.
All right, right now we can't go anywhere. There's nowhere we can go. We're not allowed to go anywhere.
Yeah, right now, no.
We
Right
hope
now,
soon. Dad, you know who's on this call? Stephanie Rosen.
Who?
Yeah.
Stephanie, show your face.
Where's
Stephanie.
Where's Stephanie?
Show your beautiful face.
Stephanie went on the trip with us.
Ah, Stephanie.
Hold on. You see her picture here?
This lady I've never saw before.
Which
Karen?
one?
Karen,
Pretty redhead
That's
with a nice smile.
you, Karen. You're the pretty redhead with the smile. Forget etiquette and forget.
Martin, I love you.
You're the pretty redhead. That's it. That's what I'm gonna call you.
Who
from
is
now
this lady here?
I gotta make sure my husband heard that, Martin.
He heard. Don't worry. Dad, this
Mark.
is Oliva.
Hi, how are you?
Hi,
Thank you for
Aviva.
sharing your story. Mark, did he go on the march with Jose Ojalvo
He did.
and the kids
But
Elizabeth?
my dad would have to see him before he'd remember who he is.
All right.
Thank God, my dad met hundreds and hundreds of people along the way. Thank God.
Sally, I think your phone is ringing.
No,
Okay, everyone, we're gonna say goodnight. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. It's beautiful.
Good
Bye.
night. Good night. Thank you.
Bye, good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for coming.
Good night.
Good night.